Now, most schools are set to resume even as Nigeria battles with a second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Academic Staff Union of Universities say it is unsafe to open universities now as classroom and hostel situations in tertiary institutions do not conform to COVID-19 safety guidelines. There are concerns over the safety of teachers and students. The federal government says it may review the January the 18th date earlier slated for the resumption of schools across the country. Joining me is the chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Universities Lagos chapter, Dele ASUU, as well as policy analyst Victor Ohai. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning for this invitation.
Good morning.
Thank you.
I'll begin with you, Dele ASUU. Your concerns about the resumption, even though government is mulling perhaps a postponement of the resumption of schools January the 18th to another date. We do not know yet. But what concerns do your members of your association, what are these concerns they are having with regards to the resumption?
Well, thank you very much. As you may be aware, over the years, our union had always told government and Nigerians that there's the need to expand infrastructures, in our universities. Take, for example, I graduated from the University of Lagos. And I recall that in my class in those days, we were just about 35, 40. That same classroom today accommodates a minimum of about 250 students. And that's why our union had always insisted that if our universities and education must be globally competitive, our government must respond to the sporadic increase in intake in our universities. So if a class was meant for 40 people, 50 at best, and 200 people, 250 people are receiving lectures in that same classroom, then you can imagine under a pandemic what that portends, not only for our colleagues who may want to teach them, but even for the students themselves. Similarly, in hostels, I stay in a hall called Mariri Hall. When I was a student, we were just 2, 3, 4 maximum in that room. That same room today houses about 18 students. So you can imagine if one student, has COVID-19, in one day you can imagine what multiplier effect we would have, not only in the classrooms, but also in the halls of residence. And that's why with this knowledge, we thought that it will not be wise to endanger the lives of our students who will replace us tomorrow, and also the life of our colleagues who moil and toil to develop human capacity for the country.
But now there are talks about new normal. Some schools, we see the University of Ilorin. I spoke to one of our colleagues earlier who talked about the fact that the university has adopted virtual learning for students. Now, talk to us in that aspect, how schools, members of your association, are perhaps embracing this new normal, because students being at home also pose a danger.
Our members are not opposed to virtual learning and teaching. In fact, at the University of Lagos, as I speak, trainings are going on for academic staff on the use and expansion of virtual learning and teaching. But on the flip side, are all the students exposed to virtual learning? Because there's a misconception about virtual learning. Virtual learning is not WhatsApp or Facebook,
Talk to us about this misconception.
social media, engagement.
Right.
To do proper virtual learning, in Unilag, for example, we adopted what is called the LMS platform. On an LMS, I could deliver a lecture to a very large number of students while they are also linking up to me. I could do a video and post the video on the learning management system. That's what LMS is. And anybody all over the world enrolled on that platform could relate with me. I could set test questions, exams and all that on the LMS. So even if we have the expertise, we've been trained to use it. I doubt whether same has been done for the students. And learning is incomplete until the learner.
Who is supposed to do that for the student?
Of course, the university,
right.
If we had been prepared. So now we are jumping into, a system that we seemingly not have a mastery of on both ends.
But we have to adapt, whether we like it or not.
No, the question is not about adapting. I think we have moved past that.
Okay.
I just told you that our members are not averse to that. But also, you must be concerned about, those who are going to receive the messages.
Should the government be blamed for that?
Oh, certainly, because over the years, we have talked about all of these issues. Each time we talk about revitalization fund in the university, that's what we're talking about.
All right.
We don't have to wait until a pandemic to be able to reach our students wherever they may be. So if that processes had been set in place before now, it would just have been very easy for us to migrate, just like it was done in some other places across the world.
Absolutely. Victor, I'd like to get your reaction to what he has just spoken about, saying that government perhaps should be blamed for the gaps that we are witnessing with regards to this new normal, adapting to this new normal, where most schools across the country have gone virtual, and it's seemingly been a challenge when it comes to this part of the world.
See, my problem with some of our universities, with all due respect, is the fact that they are not also proactive themselves. It's easy to criticize government, and I'm not a fan of the government. So if I say what I say, I speak very objectively. They're not proactive. The universities are supposed to be centers of innovation. Okay, they should be ahead. They should be thinking forward. The LMS system is talking about. I'm doing a doctoral program at the School of Business in UNN right now, and we're doing virtual. It's the LMS platform we're using. It's not really rocket science. Even the way you described it, it's so easy. I mean, if you've done Zoom before, you can do it because the presenter, can send papers, and what they do is they will send lecture notes ahead of time, so you have time, you can go through them, and then you would have reviewed them. The lecture is presented and it's interactive. You can ask questions. The only difference is that you're not in the same physical room. And so I think that every challenge should present opportunities. Absolutely. And what are the opportunities that this present? There is a limitation with bricks and mortar. I agree we need to expand our facilities, no doubt about it. But what challenges do this present? First of all, or opportunities do they present? First of all, even you in your opening talked about the fact that there's a new normal. There's so many things that have changed, so many things we're used to that will never be the same again. And so because of that, the fact of virtual learning we have come to live with. There's no,
it's not going away.
Yeah, it's not going away. That's the future. The second opportunity is that it gives us an opportunity to scale. You understand what I'm saying? Because instead of, for instance, teaching 200 students, you can teach 2,000 students remotely. Okay? So that presents an even bigger opportunity. A third opportunity, even for the business community, is to be able to bring very, very cheap devices. Very, very, very cheap devices. I believe that you can bring a sub 10,000 device that, with no frills, okay, that will help you just log on to sites like this, and because you don't have too many things, you get the necessary speed and all that, and then students can, it's like the cost of buying books. It's just that you have it and then you talk about data. So the next question is, how do universities, for instance, partner with a Globe? Sorry for mentioning a brand, it just came out of my mouth, but there are telecom companies, for instance, who are known to be friendly with the universities, and then they present low rates and all that. Okay, you might say, okay, the students are not in school anymore. Okay, they are at home. But you can have a special scheme that under which the students can enroll with the school. It presents opportunities even for the telecoms companies, and life goes on. We cannot sit down and continue to complain. And then this issue of funding and the rest of them. I agree, but we can't keep talking about funding all the time.
Really?
We need to begin to think,
Isn't
look for
that
a way around.
For
But in
anything to
business,
happen?
like no,
Yeah.
listen, the thing is, where there are challenges, please don't get me wrong, sir, I'm not averse to funding. I'm pro-funding, and I think that we are underfunded.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? But if the problem persists, what do you do? Because you have competitors. Should you just sit there and be waiting? Shouldn't you be thinking ahead and be looking at, okay, what else can we do? But let me come down to the fundamental issue here, which he so brilliantly talked about, the issue of the safety of the students and of the lecturers. It's something we cannot compromise.
Absolutely.
The way it is, the situation generally, quite frankly, is very appalling. If you open the schools as it is today, let me tell you this, there is a particular religious organization, now we're not going to mention names here, that does not believe that there's COVID. Or they tell their members, they so play it down. You understand? And many of them are in these campuses. It's very popular among students. This particular religious sect or group or denomination. Okay? People like that come, they're a moving target. They are dangerous. With all due respect. Because you see, there's faith, but there's common sense and there's science. And let me use this opportunity because we're talking about this. For those particularly Christians, and sorry for taking a bit of your time, sir, but I'll just land very shortly.
It's okay, no problem.
But when you talk about, for Christians in particular, and I need to stress this, many of them who are talking about faith and all that, I remind them that Jesus was tempted. In one of the temptations, the devil took him to the pinnacle of the temple in the holy city, right there. And he told him to jump down. And he quoted Psalm 91, that he shall give his angels charge concerning thee, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus, being smart and understanding science, he knew that at the physical realm, there are laws. If you fall from a certain height with this physical body, you go into smithereens. You will break into pieces. He told him, he said, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. And I hope that our people will not be tempting God. Let me stop at this point.
Okay, let me get your reaction to a statement he made, talking about being proactive. Because what you mentioned now, talking about, looking at funding and expanding perhaps the capacity if we want to ensure social distancing. These are things that we cannot do perhaps in a week or two if we are to do that. So addressing the low-hanging fruits, how do we get to be proactive, reacting to what he has said?
Well, you see, I don't think that we're really contradicting one another.
Right.
We are just saying the same thing in different words. Government says resume. We're raising reasons why we cannot resume.
Right.
I just told you that there are ongoing efforts in various universities to go virtual. But that the challenge is on the other side. That's
the student.
The student side. I mean, no university in Nigeria today should not be able to do minimal virtual teaching. Even some state universities. So I really don't think that we differ on some of these things.
All right.
But you see, when we talk about funding, it's an ideological issue. And I will just give a simple example. Immediately after the lockdown, because the elites in Nigeria will travel, the first focus was airports. Go to our airports today. They are not the way they were prior to COVID. But because education, universities, who cares? Who cares?
Really?
Go to some universities today, you can't even find minimal washing, places to wash your hand and hand sanitizers and all that.
Very true.
So, whether we accept or not, it is the business of government, the state, to educate its citizens. And societies that are making progress in the world today are because such societies pay requisite attention to the education sector. That's the point that I am making.
All right.
And we must also realize that we are in a society where the premium placed on education leaves more to be desired.
All right, let's quickly go on this short break. We will be back to talk more on this topic. Do stay with us.
For you to tanda for this world, you gats know what's up. Sabi wetin dey ground, then start to do your own. Get ginger to sabi every. Because when you fit see the different side of the world, anything dey possible. BBC News for Pidgin, make your life better.
The National Assembly is a busy place. As the bastion of democracy, it is a place where bills are presented, motions debated, laws made, and the yearnings of the people are laid bare. Come with us as we take you through the workings of the National Assembly. We take you through plenary, committee meetings, and probes, all to ensure smooth working of the democratic process.
You're watching TVC Breakfast, and before we went on the break, we were talking about the resumption of schools that the government had said would resume January the 18th, but is looking at perhaps a postponement with a rising number of cases. And before we also went on the break, Chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Lagos Chapter, Dele ASUU, was talking about how it is important for funding that they needed requisite attention and paying premium attention to schools at this point if we are looking at resuming schools anytime soon. And I'd like to turn our attention to Victor now. You heard what he said, talking about how the role funding plays, where some schools do not have the basic water for hand washing, do not have the basic things needed for schools at this point. I mean, and before we came back on the air, you were talking about how the fact that a lot of these persons went through the schools and why it is seemingly being difficult for us to pay the needed attention to education at this point. What future does this portend for children, students, youth who are said to be the future leaders of tomorrow? We're having this challenge now, virtual learning. Not everybody has access. And all of these challenges of funding that is not really allowing access to education at this time.
Let me just lay a few things down before I get into the main point. First of all, if you're the only rich man in a family, then you're a very poor man. Secondly, if you fail, and that applies in a community as well, if you fail to take care of your immediate community, and you are very rich, and everybody around you is pauperized and all that, the day they get hungry, they'll eat you up. Okay? I think that the elite in our society, especially the political class, are living in a bubble. It's easy for them to get their families out abroad. And by the way, other countries are banning flights from the UK and from some other countries. But our leaders will not do it because that's their weekend getaway resort. They can travel there, or even on private jets. Even when there was a lockdown before, we knew that some of them would just take a private jet, go to London, and then come back over the weekend. Now that is the most irresponsible of actions. I think that if we neglect education, these same young people, as we have seen already, like what's happening in the north, who are the killers? Who are the kidnappers? Who are the marauders? If they were educated, they'll be better occupied. Okay? And so if a society decides that they would not educate their young people and that they are better serving their children and then being given handouts, no problem. When they get really hungry, they'll begin to eat up the political class. It's a warning. Look at more responsible societies. I use the word more responsible. Norway, Finland, and the rest of them. Education is everything.
Yeah.
It liberates you. It opens up your mind. The money we waste on so many things If you put it in education, it has a multiplier effect.
Yeah, sure.
Look at business today. Where do you get the most money? It's in tech. Tech does not involve any serious infrastructure. It's brain work. You sit down and write codes, and you can scale up. Uber does not have any cars that we know of. Maybe now they want to start talking about self-driving cars in case there are critics there who want to say, I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay? Airbnb, for instance, don't own any physical bricks and mortars in terms of hotels, but they are controlling so much, and there are such rich companies today. It's all due to this. Okay? It's not about buying and selling, although that is also important because you need logistics sometimes to move these things. I think that our leaders who received free education without paying, had the benefit of school that have gotten them to where they are now, should please do a rethink. Remember that they would not be where they are if they didn't enjoy the free education facilities that they had, free books, lunch at 50 naira, and when they started their careers, they were having luncheon vouchers. They never went through what the young people are going through today. If they have any conscience, if they want their children to be better than them, then they should do better than their parents did for them.
All right. Now, in specific terms, I'd like for you to talk to us about what safety guarantees that your association or union, rather, will want from the government to ensure that perhaps students can return to school, and the timeline you are giving government with that.
Well, you see, it is not within the powers of our union to do what you are requesting for. Government, through respective university administration, especially University Senate, will be the one, empowered by law to design university calendar, including resumption, closure, etc. But in terms of safety measures, for instance, the guideline on COVID-19, the protocols are there.
Right.
Social distancing, what is it on ground that can guarantee, social and physical distancing when students come back? How prepared are we with sanitizers and such other, I talked earlier about facilities for washing hands and all that all over campuses, so that right from gate, students can avail themselves opportunity, crowd control, maybe also universities may want to face resumption. Maybe within these first 3 months, final year students can come in to minimize, the number of people on campus at any particular point in time. Also, this idea about virtual learning is also useful because all the students in a university won't be within that geographical space. Some of them would have to travel several kilometers to get to the university and all that. So what we are insisting is, let us see, concrete actions in terms of infrastructure, in terms of, the guidelines are stipulated, such that one can say, okay, with what is on ground at the moment, it is safe for students to come back to school.
So obviously now we can say that perhaps the universities are prepared for virtual learning as it is, or not prepared?
I can say for my university, yes. And maybe for some others who are also, in the media to say they're ready for virtual learning. But I cannot speak for all the 110 universities that we have in Nigeria.
All right, we'll leave the conversation here now. We must thank you, Chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Universities Lagos Chapter, Dele ASUU, as well as Policy Analyst Victor Ohai, for your time on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for this invitation.